Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our featured speaker, a renowned name in the strategy community, Alexander Osterwalder of Strategyzer, in this episode of Talk with Emmanuel. Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Talk with Emmanuel. This podcast in the past has been blessed with numerous highly regarded speakers, both from inside Australia as well as outside. But none has had the international reputation and influence like my guest in this episode. Now, I managed to catch up with Alex during Strategyzer 3 days masterclass for a very short period of time to ask him about Strategyzer's recent book launch, The Invincible Company. Dr. Alexander Osterwalder, or Alex, is one of the world's most influential innovation experts, a leading author, entrepreneur, and in-demand speaker, whose work has changed the way established companies do business and how new ventures get started. Ranked number 4 of the top 50 management thinkers worldwide, Osterwalder is known for simplifying the strategy development process and turning complex concepts into digestible visual models. Together with Yves Pigneur, he invented the business model canvas, value proposition canvas, and business portfolio map. Practical tools that are trusted by millions of business practitioners from leading global companies, including us here at Accolade Coaching. Strategyzer, which is Osterwalder's company, provides online courses, applications, and technology-enabled services to help organizations effectively and systematically manage strategy, growth, and transformation. His books include the international bestsellers Business Model Generation, Value Proposition Design, Testing Business Ideas, and the recently launched The Invincible Company. So without further ado, please enjoy this short interview between me and Alex discussing the new Strategyzer book, The Invincible Company. Hi Alex, welcome to Talk with Emmanuel.
Hi, good to be here.
Awesome. Congratulations for your recently published new book. It's been a few weeks now, but it's such an exciting. Now, tell us, you and the team in Strategyzer already published 3 books in the past. Why another book?
It's a very good question. We always ask this question first. Does the world need another business book? And the answer should generally be no, but we sometimes arrogantly think yes. And the way we decide if we should write another book is when we see a challenge in the field, in real companies, that seems unresolved, right? That they can't get over. And in this particular case, we've been working on innovation now for 20 years. We simply didn't see companies innovating enough. And what we were asking ourselves is, how can we get them to the next level? And what we realize is there are 2 things that we need to really address: the leadership level. So what can we create there in terms of shared language, like we created with the business model canvas, more for doers? And the second aspect is, how can we help companies innovate beyond product, services, and price? And that's why we decided to write a new book, The Invincible Company, which is very practical and should help leaders and innovators get to the next level to really bring innovation to their companies. There are a lot of books out there, but we believe that we bring maybe something, a bit more practical, and we build on top of all of the great stuff that's already there by the great thinkers like Steve Blank, Rita McGrath, and so. We add this tool level, so that's really our passion, and we think there are just not enough, practical tools and processes out there, so we try to add that to the mix.
So you created quite a daring title, Invincible Company. Like is the notion of an invincible company really realistic? Can a company be an invincible company?
Yeah. So the question is clearly no, right? Except if you're a state monopoly. But the reason we call it the Invincible Company is because it needs to be aspirational. The goal is to constantly reinvent yourself, keep this mentality of day one, like Jeff Bezos likes to say at Amazon, so you can stay ahead. So no company can be invincible, but what you can do is constantly reinvent yourself while you're managing the existing, and that will keep you ahead, right? So that's what we meant with the Invincible Company. Could have also called it the Resilient Company. How do you actually become more resilient so you don't get disrupted? Right now we're disrupted by, a huge disruption, COVID-19, But
Yeah.
in general, companies need to think a lot more about how not to be disrupted. So that's why we chose that book title, because we want to help companies realize you can't be invincible, but you can stay ahead.
So one of the most important tool presented in this book is called what you call it, the portfolio map. Can you elaborate more about what is a portfolio map and how can business leaders use this portfolio map to manage their organization?
Yeah. So let me take a step back and kind of challenge how innovation happens today. In many companies, like in all companies, you have innovation activities, but in many companies, that's innovation theater. Like Steve Blank, the inventor of the lean startup methodology, likes to call it. It means a lot of things going on in innovation, but not with a lot of results, right? We're not building the next new growth engines. So what we said is companies need to actually be good at managing two portfolios. The businesses that they have, so you make acquisitions, you make divestitures, you improve your business models. Companies are pretty good at that. But the second part is the second portfolio, which is exploring new ideas. While you're successful, while you're managing the present, you need a portfolio of new ideas, of which many will fail, but some really good ones will emerge. Because you don't pick the best ideas in innovation, you create the conditions for them to emerge. So this whole idea of portfolio management is about managing two portfolios, the exploit portfolio and the explore portfolio. Could also call this, in a very academic way, the ambidextrous organization. World-class at managing the existing and world-class at inventing the future. And those two portfolios need to be integrated. You need to have a very clear strategic vision for both portfolios, because often strategy and innovation are disconnected. There's only one strategy that should drive your core portfolio of existing businesses and your innovation portfolio. That's the way we look at it. And we thought there needs to be a much better language for senior leaders to manage this. And that's why we created the portfolio map. And we saw huge traction with many leaders around the world who say, wow, okay, this is how portfolio management works in the modern world. Don't just manage the existing. A lot of CEOs are good at that. But you also need to invent the future, which is a lot more about entrepreneurial action.
One more question, if I can ask. You mentioned in the book also that you can't pick the winners without investing on the losers.
Yeah.
Now, how is that? How often does that happen in business?
Yeah. So it's very interesting, right? So one of the things I often do, because I need to provoke leaders into understanding how innovation really works, right? Because a lot of the leaders at the head of companies are extremely good managers, but they're not necessarily always aware of how innovation really works. So what I tell them, or what I show them, is that you can't pick the winners. And I use a very simple data set to prove that. If you look at early stage venture capital, right, the world of ideas and emerging new growth engines, it turns out that only 1 out of 250 ideas will become a huge success. Only 4 out of 1,000. What does that mean?
Wow.
In large companies, we need to create big growth engines, right? A new $50 million business is not going to do it for Nestle or GE or so. We need a big winner. But the big winners, you can't actually pick them. That means you need to invest in a broad portfolio of new ideas, small amounts of money. Okay, that's the important thing. Small amounts of money. Those teams, they go and test their ideas, and then you only do follow-up investments in the teams that really produce results. And when I say that, when I tell that number to CEOs, it goes click. They get it, because the logic in innovation is you can't pick the winners. You need to invest in a broad portfolio, and you make follow-up investments like a venture capitalist, right? And a good example of where they're doing this, Amazon, of course, Ping An has done that very well. But there's also a German company called Bosch, big German engineering company, 400,000 people. Over 3 years, they invested in 200 teams. In phase 1, they give them 3 months, and they give them a budget of 120,000 euro to explore. After 3 months, they kill 70% of the projects, and only 30% go into the phase 2. In phase 2, they get a bigger budget and they get more time. But again, after phase 2, they kill over 70% of the projects. Why do they do that? Because that's how the winners emerge. And you don't pick ideas based on your pet projects, those that you like most. You pick the ideas based on those that bring evidence to the table. And that's how you make follow-up investments. That's how innovation works.
That's awesome, Alex. There's so much more to talk about, but there's so limited amount of time. Now, how can the audience, the listeners of this podcast, get more of this?
Best is to go to Strategyzer.com. You'll find a lot of free stuff. Even our newest book, we give a quarter of every book we write. We give it away. We love the freemium model, so you can get a taster. If you like it, you can get more. You can subscribe to our blog. Again, we want these methods and tools to spread because we make money not from books and tools. We make money from software and helping large enterprises reinvent themselves. So go to Strategyzer and find a lot of this stuff. It's there for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex, for your time, and hopefully we have another chance to for a future episode. Thank you.
I hope so. It was good being with you. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed and find value from the discussion in this episode. Don't forget to leave some comment or write your review on iTunes. I'm really looking forward to hear what you think about this podcast. You can also leave your comment on my Facebook page, Talk with Emmanuel. If you have any question about anything we discussed in this episode, feel free to send me a message using the button provided on the page. Until next time.